Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Pop Jedi. I'm, of course, Rob DeLauro. With me, as always, is Miss Chani herself. Jenna, say what? Jenna, what is going on?
Not too much, Rob. What's going on with you?
So first of all, just like we do every week, we want to thank you so much for your continued love and support. We're getting a lot of great reception when it comes to the Evil Dead episode when we celebrated the 40th anniversary. And again, just please help us like and subscribe. It helps us get out to more people, helps the volume of the channel, and helps us grow. So thank you so much again for that. And unfortunately, Halloween has ended. So we are going to get back into some different territories when it comes to subgenres. And we're going to be talking about sci-fi this time around and the masterful first chapter of Denis Villeneuve's Dune, which is out in theaters right now, and highly recommend do it theatrically. Go see it in IMAX before it actually, it's getting ready to leave the theater. So, do yourself a favor and go do it that way. So we're going to do a review on Dune. Interesting thing about this particular review is one of us is a huge fan of Dune, as you can see here, and one doesn't know anything about the world. So we'll get into that later. But first, we're actually going to get into the news of the week. Really, really awesome news this week. So here is Top Jedi News. Jenna, what is going on in Top Jedi this week?
First up, we have some filming in Scotland, which is for Good Omens, which is, I'm stoked about this. We got some more set photos, just like we got just little sneak peeks. They don't know who's coming back to reprise roles. They're being very hush-hush about this. But currently they're saying that the plot is having been on Earth since the beginning and the apocalypse thwarted, Aziraphale and Crowley are getting back to the easy living in amongst the people in London Soho, and an unexpected messenger presents a mystery for them. So I'm just stoked to see these two back together. I am a huge fan of the show. I still have to read the books. I don't read a lot, so you're gonna have to forgive me on that one, but I will actually. That is a book on my list of things to read, so I plan on doing that. But I am a huge fan of the show. I absolutely love Michael Sheen. I absolutely love David Tennant. They are incredible together, and I'm just,
Well, next in Top Jedi News, we actually have a little news when it comes to Disney, and this is kind of cool because, we are a pop culture show. We do talk about comic books, and of course, it was the 80th anniversary of Wonder Woman recently, and you can't talk about Wonder Woman without Miss Gal Gadot, and she's going to be playing her first villainous role ever in her career as the evil queen in yet another Snow White reimagining. So, as I said before, this is her first villainous role. We've never actually seen her do something like this. I think she's going to nail it. I really do. I'm really super excited for her.
I'm stoked.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, I did not like Disney. No one yelled at me for that one, but I did love the villains of the movies. I was always like, why is Ursula such a bad person? She had a contract. I'm confused. Even as like a small child, I was like, I don't get it. Like, so seeing her as the evil queen, I'm here for it. Oh God, am I here for it.
What is going on in Top Jedi News this week?
Speaking of Be Still My Beating Heart, Morbius. So it is I'm a huge Morbius fan. I love the comics. Michael Morbius is one of my favorite comic book. I think he's a hero, but that's just me. But so the new trailer came out, and you see the helicopter bringing in Morbius. You have some flashbacks of him treating patients, and he's going to this cave to become the Morbius that we know, and it's incredible. You see like the ship where he's being like he's like hiding out in the ship is what it kind of seems like. You have gunfire, you have all this to do, you have there is a ton of Spider-Man Easter eggs in this thing. It is not even funny. You have
it's almost like he's in 3 different timelines because
yes,
the wall showcases Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man.
Yep.
And then there's like allusion to Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and then Tom Holland's Spider-Man. So
yes. And I'm so stoked about this because there is a lot of like crossover with this, and it is no surprise to anybody that's watching this, that has watched this, that I am a huge fan of like all the creepy crawly kind of characters in Marvel and DC. And Morbius goes full Morbius in this, and I'm so ready for it. He goes all like, oh, creepy, and I love it. I'm ready for it. And I'm really hoping that they kind of like sneak him on into the MCU and like kind
I think so.
of bring him into that, because Michael Morbius is an absolute incredible character. He's very like detailed with his job. He's a doctor. I mean, he has great bedside manner. He knows what it's like to be a patient. So as someone that's been in the medical field for as long as I have been, seeing that kind of like in Jared Leto, he's going to do a phenomenal job. I have no doubt. The whole trailer ends with, you know, him like making a joke, and it just, Morbius is such a wonderfully like 4-dimensional character. So I'm here for it. I'm ready.
I am also on the same page as you. I am a huge fan of the monster verse when it comes to Marvel, and you know, like Morbius really opens a gateway that I've been so excited for so many years, that you know, in the hopes that, you know, we're going to get, you know, maybe a new Ghost Rider film. Maybe they'll bring the Midnight Suns out, and all these different monsters and creatures that they have within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And of course,
I want Blade back.
This also connects to Blade in some way, I would think.
Yep. I want Blade back, period.
Oh, definitely. Well, we're definitely gonna get him with Mahershala Ali. So you know, like there's definitely a huge plan here. You know, maybe if the cosmic stuff doesn't quite work out, you know, like, you know, we'll get into the Eternals thing later, but you know, they have their cards set in different places, you know, for all different types of fandom and stuff. So with that said, next in Top Jedi news, we are getting a Werewolf by Night Halloween special next year on Disney Plus, starring a great actor, Gabriel Garcia Bernal, who was recently in M. Night Shyamalan's Old. But you know, he's an award nominated actor, and you know, this is another opening, you know, for Oscar Isaac from Dune, who is going to be playing Moon Knight, because you know, Werewolf by Night is technically an antagonist for Moon Knight. Yep. And like all these connections are happening, and I'm just so excited for it. And you know, nobody really said if it's going to be an animated thing or if it's actually going to be a live action, you know, situation.
I hope it's live action.
But the fact that we're getting werewolves and vampires, and we've already gotten witches into the MCU, so exciting. And also in Top Jedi news, when it comes to the monsterverse and the multiverse of madness, there was a leak. It was an Australian book company that released a photo of a puzzle, coloring puzzle book for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, with the great Cthulhu of Marvel, Shuma Gorath, on the cover. So it looks as if Shuma Gorath, who was already alluded to in the What If series, and you know, there was speculation of that, is going to be the major big bad in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. When it comes to Top Jedi news, not quite Dune, but something that was definitely inspired by Dune. What is next in Top Jedi news?
Oh boy, it's a plethora of making Jen happy this week. But the Boba Fett trailer just dropped, and let me tell you, it looks incredible. The trailer's only like 1:45, but it packs so much in. You have Boba Fett going all these different places, like making friends, making deals, all this, that, like, there's just so much. It looks like there's going to be a lot of really amazing fight scenes. My personal favorite is and I do have to say, as a yellow Twi'lek, we have a yellow Twi'lek, finally.
Played by none other than Miss Jennifer Beals of Flashdance fame.
Yep.
And she's also a genre favorite. She's been in so many genre films through the years.
So yeah, I'm stoked just to see that. And again, I mean, there was so much packed into that trailer. It was just like quick fire trailer, so it wasn't that long. However, again, as a Twi'lek, as someone who's in partial their flesh tone Twi'lek get up, I'm stoked to see more Twees in the Star Wars universe. I'm just ready. So I'm just hoping that they bring in some more colors, because we gotta have all of our color palette in there. But yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with it. It looks like they brought on some past characters as well. So I'm excited. I'm ready.
I think the thing I love about it the most is that we're finally getting like a true like Star Wars underworld situation. And Mark Bernardin, actually, of the Kevin Smith show, Fat Man Beyond, made a great comparison, because a lot of people were saying this is kind of like the Godfather of Star Wars, but it's probably more like the Wire of Star Wars. And that was what Mark was saying. How, like Boba Fett wants to have this organization, basically have a set of rules, so they can actually become more successful in what they want to do in terms of like, making more revenue and this and that. But he's also kind of a maniac. So, and you've got your right hand Fennec Shand, like ready to kill you in any second. Like if you're insolent towards my boss, you're going to get murdered.
It's going to be, and like I said, it looks like there's just going to be a plethora of fight scenes and everything. And I'm here for it. I'm ready for a Boba Fett series.
So next, as I said before, our topic is going to be Denis Villeneuve's Dune. And I personally am a huge, I love the world of Dune, and I have since I was a little kid. Ever since I saw David Lynch's version back in the 80s and had no idea what the hell was going on. I had no clue. All I knew it was a sci-fi movie, and I just loved everything about it, just due to the fact of, we weren't privy to that kind of movie back then. But it was weird, it was strange. And of course, as an adult, I grew up and I, love the actual lore of Frank Herbert. I've read the books many, many times. And, again, I'm still, not even just a loyal David Lynch fan as a whole, but I still love his movie. And it's so crazy and out there, and might even still have people scratching their heads going like, what the hell is going on? Like, what is this movie? Denis Villeneuve watered down Dune enough for a mass audience, and that's why it's able to, get the reception that it has, I believe, because it's easy to understand, and basically like keeps in those elements that are not only just important to the story, but doesn't stray away in terms of trying to make something brand new. Like it's actually like it's a love letter to Frank Herbert, and that's what that's why I think Dune is so successful. And we're talking about it today, and it's like all of a sudden, like, even though it's kind of been like this kind of fringe fandom or whatever, now you see people that don't know anything about Dune like just talking about Dune. It's like part of the pop culture now, and I love it. I love seeing posts about it and jokes about it, memes about it. It makes me so happy, because this world was due to be what it is right now, and I don't think it ever really hit the mark. So when it comes to Dune, if you're not familiar, it was a book that was released in 1965. It was actually supposed to be released as a 2-part serial within a magazine. But Frank Herbert, he was a fan of, not only comic books, but also, certain politics, geopolitical views, ecology and all kinds of different things, and made this really dense, serious story, set in this, galaxy that he had basically created. So because it was so, rich, with politics, with characterization, with all these different things, like Dune has been, called the Bible of sci-fi for many, many years, with good reason. And if you actually go into the pop culture, from The Simpsons to, this and that, and of course, Star Wars, which basically just distilled so much out of the Dune world to create, what it has become since A New Hope in the 70s. Dune is a very, very, very important story, when it comes to this subgenre, like sci-fi, with horrific elements and drama and, family relations. And I think Denis caught it. He loves the material, and he understood what he needed to do to make it work. for the box office. And so that's my feeling on it. Jenna is somebody that doesn't know the world of Dune at all, and she did for assignment watch the movie. And I want to know, Jenna, like, what are your thoughts on Dune as a whole before we get into the actual storyline of it?
Well, I liked it. I thought it was good. I was like, oh, I see where Star Wars got their stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I recognize like everything that they could have taken from it. I it was very obvious. I also had a friend basically translating the whole movie to me because they did read the books and are a big Dune fan. And I was like, I'm gonna try and pick that up, but okay. And like there was a lot of like, let's help Jenna like figure out what's going on in terms that most people wouldn't know. So like luckily my friends know that I'm good with talking through movies because I'm that person. But like for this specifically, it was really nice having like friends being like, okay, so this is the history of it, because we watched it at a friend's house, so we were able to like pause it and like they were able to explain it to me, and I was like, oh, okay. So like that helped significantly with like understanding certain parts, because there were parts where I was like, I'm gonna like, why is that a thing? Why is this like a thing? And they're like, oh, it's because of this in the book. And I'm like, oh. So yeah, I had a nice experience with it in the terms of like knowing better as to what was going on. But I thought it was a great movie. I liked it.
What was your feeling on the actual like the cast that they stacked up for that? It's pretty intense. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
I think everybody did a phenomenal job. Like I'm not familiar with the books. I didn't know Dune was a thing until this movie released. I'm like, what's a Dune? Like, and yeah, so I don't have a point of reference as far as like who would have been a better casting choice for this character or vice versa or whatever. Like I don't have a clue about that. So, but I thought that everybody worked really well together. They looked phenomenal on screen. The costumes, my God, as a costumer, I'm like, drool. Yeah. There's like 4 costumes that I'm like eyeballing pretty hard that I might make. Like, I just want that black dress with the cowl, because I have a dress that looks very similar to that, but it's like tie-dye black and gray. And I have to have that dress. That dress will be mine.
Well, let's get into Star Wars, like does have its darker moments, especially in The Empire Strikes Back and probably Revenge of the Sith for the most part. But it's kind of more light and airy. It's, you know what I mean? It's about like, Jim Henson's Muppets running around and cantinas filled with aliens and stuff. And if that's what people were expecting from Dune, then, like, sorry to disappoint, that's kind of not the thing. It is, it is a human drama, set, dare I, say, in a galaxy far away. And I think that's why it like resonates with so many people, because of that character development. And you feel like you get a really deep understanding of, like all these different houses, like, the Harkonnen house, and of course the Atreides house, and like I said, I think that's something that Denis really caught on to enough, for people to like really understand it. Like, he didn't dumb it down, but he simplified it enough to, like I said, to bring in an audience that initially probably wouldn't go and watch something like this. My father is not a big sci-fi head, and he absolutely adored Dune. And, like that says something. It definitely says something. But this is a really bleak story, and that's what it's, kind of meant to be. It's not a fun, romp. You know what I mean? It's basically like a family of, of power that's just being completely and utterly betrayed, by their government, or, in this case, their Imperium, when it comes to this actual lore. And, I think, I think he really hit the mark when it came to the actual casting, because, let's start with Timothée Chalamet, because Timothée Chalamet I've seen in a couple other things, and he is, he's popular because of his appeal when it comes to, especially, like a lot of young women and stuff. He's a handsome young guy. But Timothy always he always reminded me of like a young Johnny Depp. You know what I mean? Like somebody that is so handsome, but at the same time, like really wants to take these like really deep meteor roles or whatever. But the thing that I love about, his performance when it comes to Paul Atreides is that he is a teenager. That's what he is. You know what I mean? And he doesn't quite understand, this whole, we'll just call it the shine for lack of a better word, but the fact that he is supposed to be this super powerful being called the Kwisatz Haderach, which is, basically, he's the antithesis of what the Bene Gesserit, which is basically the space witches in the movie want. Like they are their own hierarchy of women. So, there used to be, Bene Gesserit men. So, Paul's kind of like the testing ground for, that possibility of that returning, you know what I mean? And kind of breaking up, the monotony of, this being like, all powerful women or whatever.
I kind of like that idea though, but that was just me. I was just like, ew, boys, no, make it all women.
But the thing about the Bene Gesserit are, like they're conniving and deceitful, you know what I mean? And, like that scene where, she basically has, the poison needle or the gom jabbar to Paul's neck, just shows the lengths that they will go. You know what I mean?
Honestly, I like, this is a weird, like, thought train on this, but whenever she was doing that, like that whole scene, it reminded me, and I was a huge Defiance fan. That reminded me of Stama Tar a little bit, which is my girl. I love Stama. She's conniving and evil, and I love her. And like that whole scene was just like, that's such a Stama Tar thing to do. I love it. Like, so even like things like this kind of made me go, oh, I wonder if that's where they got that kind of like idea from for like Defiance and things like that.
Well, here's the other thing too. Like, and I hope they get into it in the second part, is that, Paul is also, he's not supposed to be like this, like this kind of Superman space Jesus or whatever. It's supposed to be, this powerful being, so the Bene Gesserit can, use him kind of as a tent pole, to, basically like kind of lord over the quote unquote brown people, the Fremen, who are basically sacrificing this, this Caucasian dude. And that in itself, I think, is really intense and, like is definitely a statement. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, what did you think of, the portrayal of the Atreides family? Like, of course, like Oscar Isaac, playing Duke Leto, and Rebecca Ferguson, playing Lady Jessica, who honestly, to me, I think for me, she was actually the standout for the most part when it comes to the film. But what was your interpretation of that particular family when you're watching the movie?
I mean, like, now everything that is my opinion is grounded in pure, not like unknowledge, is that a word? It's a word now. Unknowledge of the whole series.
Well, if Kwisatz Haderach and Shai Hulud are actual words in the story, why not? Unknowledge.
I'm literally going in this blind, and I was just like, okay, this family, like, there's a lot going on beneath the surface with this family. I feel like there's like a lot of tension, but there's like also a lot of love and caring and compassionate like family dynamics with them. So like I just thought that they were like a really solid like family dynamic. It kind of gave you a really good story with that family and gave you kind of a good understanding as to like Paul's upbringing and how he will kind of become whatever he's going to become, because I don't know.
I kind of disagree with you, and here's why. Because, when it comes to Duke Leto and Lady Jessica's relationship, they're obviously very much in love with each other. And she went against the will of the Bene Gesserit to, birth a child, a male child, a male heir for Duke Leto. But at the same time, he can't trust her because she's quote unquote living in the dark, when it comes to her actual Bene Gesserit roots.
Right.
And he didn't marry her. He made her his concubine. So, I mean, there's some real serious tension there. And
Oh
of
no,
course, the fact
I
that
agree with that.
he can't trust her. If something were to happen to him, like he can't really trust his own wife, like, are you going to be on Paul's side? Are you going to protect him with your life? He doesn't have any knowledge of that.
Right.
So it's
that's why I said there's a lot beneath the surface. There's like, that's why I said there's tension, but there's also love there too. But like, yeah, it's just like you kind of can see where Paul's gonna be a little like conflicted later on, I'm sure. I feel like I almost felt like, and again, this came before Kylo, but I almost saw like a Kylo kind of dynamic in him.
You are not wrong. You are not wrong. And like,
again, I know it came before, but
no, you are not wrong.
I have to work on, guys.
You're absolutely not wrong. And the thing is, like the thing I love about it is, and this is something else that's in the book as well, is that Duke Leto is kind of like this he's this unlikely like politician, what I mean, like he didn't want this life, as Oscar Isaac says to Paul, like, listen, I know you don't want this. I was the same way. I wanted to be a pilot. Shout out to his Star Wars roots, by the way.
I loved that nod. I was like,
absolutely. But again, he's a reluctant, politician, or a reluctant, like power. He didn't want this, and like, I do love that he's not like, listen, Paul, you're gonna do what you're gonna do this, or you're like this and that. He's kind of like, listen, feel it out, see what you think about it. You know what I mean? There's a softness to that family that I really love, I think. And you could tell that Lady Jessica, even when she, puts Paul in utter peril, like having him talk to the Reverend Mother, knowing that if he screws up, he's dead. You know what I mean? Like, but there's still a love there. And that's what I love about Rebecca. Well, I've always loved Rebecca Ferguson anyway, but, her portrayal of Lady Jessica is, she's not just like, just completely strong-willed all the time. And she knows that, even when he's being tested, like she's kind of making a mistake. And you see that, when she's outside the door and she's just.
Yeah. I could feel like, I was just like, oh God, it hurt for her. Oh God. Like, yeah. So I feel that.
So let's look at the Harkonnen family, as they're called in this movie. What did you think of, not knowing anything, when it comes to this, like, quote unquote evil, situation, family situation? Did you think they were portrayed well enough? Seeing Dave Bautista as the Beast Raban, and Dave Dastmalchian from the Suicide Squad. First of all, let us applaud Dave for his career lately. I mean, my God,
he deserves it.
The Suicide Squad. The Demeter movie that's going to come out probably next year. When it comes to Dracula on the ship, Dune. I mean, this guy is just killing it in his career, and I'm so happy to see it.
Yeah, he deserves every bit going to him. I swear, I love that man so much. He deserves all of this, all the jobs giving him that he's been given. Like, he's incredible. He is an incredible actor. Like, I did like that family because they are the obvious villains of the storyline, and they're dark and twisted, and I always am drawn to that because that I'm a cinnamon roll and that's not me, and I'm just like, how do you get a backbone? How does that feel? And they're just like like, so I liked them. I thought that they did a great job. I'm a big fan of Bautista. Back whenever I was into wrestling, he was one of my favorite wrestlers. So I hold a torch for the man. So so realistically, that's going to be a heavily biased opinion on Bautista.
And also too, I think that's something else that Villeneuve like really portrayed perfectly, is that, even though, you're seeing kind of like this sort of celebratory moment, where, if you're not familiar with the material, you see the Atreides like, like, oh, they're good people. They're going to go to the planet Arrakis. and they're going to bring peace and this and that. But you could see from the very moment that Duke Leto, Oscar Isaac actually, like signs his, like his basically his stamp of approval, they're done for. You know what I mean? Like this is all a huge setup, and like I think that dread is definitely thick in the air, even with like those supposedly celebratory scenes. I think. Did you feel that way?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It definitely. He has a really good way of like portraying emotion on his face.
Mm-hmm.
And when he signed those documents, you could tell in his face that he knew that he was signing basically their death certificates at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could read it in his, he's such a phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So yeah, a lot of those scenes, the actors did such a phenomenal job being able to portray kind of already knowing that they were signing their death certificates, and bravo to them. Like that is incredibly hard to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So of course we're introduced to Jason Momoa as Duncan Idaho, which is basically, technically the right-hand protector of not only just the Atreides family, but Paul himself. What did you think of Jason Momoa in this role? I love him in this role because he wasn't exactly dude broing it up. He was kind of, like for Jason Momoa, I thought he was kind of playing it, serious. I mean, yeah, he was like, joking with them a little bit and stuff like that. But for the most part, he was just kind of, he was exciting enough, but not, amping it up to the levels of like an Aquaman or something.
Yeah, I'm going to be real with you. The whole time he was on screen, I'm like, but the beard, where's,
oh yeah.
But where's the beard at though? And like, I don't know why that bothered me so deeply, but it did. And then, so like, I was hyper fixated on that. Hello, ADHD. And then on top of that, I was like, why is he not larger than life? This is weird. Like the whole time. So I was really distracted by that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but like I said, like he's definitely, he's not playing it up, you know what I mean? And he's not.
No, I was impressed seeing him in a role that wasn't like larger than life. I mean, look at all of his past roles. So it's kind of neat to see him like a little bit more like under everyone else. He's amazing. I love him as an actor. Like
I do too.
He's phenomenal.
I do too. I think when he gets the right role. I mean, again, we're talking about a bias here because I love him as Aquaman. I absolutely love him as Arthur Curry. So, and again, like I just really appreciate that he took it seriously. So what did you think of Josh Brolin's interpretation of Gurley Halleck, which, of course, if you guys aren't familiar with Dune, is kind of the right hand of Oscar Isaac's, like Duke Leto's character, where Duncan is more supposed to be like in charge of Paul and defend Paul's life if something were to ever happen to him. But, I think Josh had a menace to him. And, even when training Paul, is just like, listen, kid, like we're going to really battle with each other, and you're going to learn how to fight, and you're not going to, you're not going to cut any corners. Like, I'm going to kick your ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I thought he was great. Again, not knowing anything about any of the characters at all going into it, but I felt like he knew a lot more than what he even led on to. I feel like he's seen some shit for real. Yeah. He's just like, listen, I did find that it was really interesting with the sparring routine, because that reminded me of the Star Trek holodeck before it was the holodeck, like way back in the beginning, like the first Star Trek, how there was like, it was almost like a VR kind of situation. And then as the holodeck started to progress into what it is now, which is mind blowing, but they had it to where you would spar and do things like that, and you would change colors or you would do whatever. So like it kind of reminded me of a holodeck program, and that kind of like made my little Starfleet heart sing, because I'm a huge Trekkie. That is my sci-fi right there is Trek. But yeah, it made my heart sing a little bit. So I was like, oh,
Gene Roddenberry's definitely inspired by Frank Herbert's work for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I actually was like, oh, they stole that from Star Trek. And my friend who was watching it was like, actually, and I was like, oh, like I had no idea. Cause like in my head, Star Trek is the Bible for me, for all intents and purposes. It is the sci-fi Bible for me.
Yeah.
And so like I hold that to like a standard. And
It's just
whenever I
that
found that out, I was like,
it's just that Roddenberry was praying to somebody else.
yes. Yes. And I was just like, what? Like it was just a complete shock to me because like I had no idea. But yeah, I thought that Josh Brolin is such a like ridiculously flexible actor.
Mm-hmm.
Like ridiculously flexible.
Yeah, for sure. So you'd mentioned the actual scene, where they're battling each other, and they have the shields, that turn red and blue. What's really cool about this is that, in David Lynch's version, they actually were like kind of like in these kind of weird like Lego cubes, like their entire like body, were like in these weird, kind of like VR for the time, it was 84. But like I do love how, like it was just basically just a little simple color change, like, like the audience knows, like the shield's actually working or it's been deflected, because it, changes color. I think that was definitely a beautiful touch, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because you kind of have to be able to like symbolize that somehow to an audience, especially an audience that has no idea the story arc behind anything. You don't know like how anything works, like myself, like going in completely blind into Dune, and that helped me realize, oh, okay, so obviously red is bad. Very bad.
So let's talk about, of course, the family heads off to the planet Arrakis, and like, wow, I mean, like when it comes, of course, to the cinematography and just the lay of the land, where I think Denis and the cast actually filmed in Tunisia and all these different places for months and months and months, and dealt with like real desert heat and all of it. God, like that planet, the planet within the movie just looks like absolutely gorgeous and treacherous at the same time. Like you just know as soon as they, that was obviously like that was Herbert's interpretation. Like he was pulling from messianic and like Middle Eastern culture. So it does feel like they landed, like in Iraq or something. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, exactly. I thought that like especially like Middle Eastern everything, culture, dress, everything was very represented in this movie. Like God, the costumes though. Oh God, I'm gonna make so many. Sorry, I went somewhere.
So once they land, on Arrakis, like it like the bleakness already occurs. You know what I mean? Just the thing that's also really great about it is that, like people that aren't familiar like yourself, Jenna, with, the actual, like world of Dune is that, this is hundreds and hundreds of years after technology has basically just been, blocked out. You know what I mean? Like they don't have computers and things like that. That's actually Dave DeSmulchin's characters, like he's basically, he's a being called a mentat. Mentat are supposed to be like the human computers for, say, the Harkonnen family. You know what I mean? Like his eyes roll back white and, could basically like, figure out graphs and numbers and all these different things because computers and things don't exist. So everything, when it comes to technology, even though they have the power of flight and whatnot, everything's very crude, which is something you definitely see, within the, the planet Arrakis, and of course, all the mining equipment that was left behind, that the Harkonnen family left behind, 80 years before, when they decided, one day, like, yeah, we're done here, and they, like shipped off, and left this really, really horrible equipment, which doesn't work. It's all broken. It's smoking. It's terrible. But I wanted to ask you, like, there's one thing that I honestly like had a problem with, when it comes to this movie, and, like, don't get me wrong. I thought like I got to talk to Javier Bardem years ago. I think he's such a phenomenal actor. And I do understand what Denis was doing when it comes to the actual world of the Fremen, which of course are the desert people, within the film. did you think it was kind of problematic that he didn't actually get some actual Middle Eastern people to play these characters?
I mean, we already know my answer is yes. I mean, like, I always feel that we need to represent in all aspects, you know, of cinematography, of you know, film of any kind. It was kind of disappointing whenever I was like, come on, guys, like, it's so easy. Come on, like, just represent. There's actors there. I mean, I just, that, of course I'm going to be a little bit upset about that because of the fact that, like, I really am someone that is an advocate, and I believe that we should use actors that are representative of that nationality. And since Middle Eastern, you know, everything was so represented in that, it's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Such an easy fix. Like, come on, just do it.
You know, of course, Paul is getting all these visions of Arrakis, and, you know, the character of Chani, which is a, you know, female Fremen played by Zendaya. Now, did you think these actual, like, dreamlike visions worked for the most part? You know, when it comes to, I mean, you know, obviously, if you're looking for Zendaya to be in the film, she's hardly in it. But I think what they do with her is, I think it's, you know, like, I think it's beautifully done enough where, you know, like, I don't know. I just thought it was done perfectly. I think, you know, just these little
I was
dreamlike moments.
confused about the dream stuff, because I was like, I have no idea what's happening. Like, that was one thing where I was just like, I don't get it, but okay, there's got to be a reason for it. So, like,
so basically what that was stating is that Paul was getting visions of Arrakis before he actually landed on the planet. Like, he has, like, a connection to, you know, the people and the world of Arrakis. Like, he has, you know, quote unquote, this desert power. You know what I mean?
I kind of assumed that, but I also was like, but why?
And Chani would, you know, technically, like, to a certain degree, be his love interest, but at the same time, you know, he's actually seeing moments, you know, visions of her murdering him. But yeah, again, you know, like, I just think, you know, those little dreamlike moments with her, you know, like, were, you know, I think spoken enough, you know, when it comes to, you know, like, if you're actually really paying attention to the story, that, you know, Paul is actually just seeing, you know, visions of, you know, he's seeing teenage visions of a girl that eventually he's going to meet and possibly fall in love with. That's kind of what it is.
Yeah, that's all I got from it. But I was just like, I don't know what's the symbolism behind this, but okay.
Let's talk about the actual betrayal situation. Did you feel any kind of emotion when, you know, you're just seeing, you know, like, from the moment Paul, you know, like, basically, you know, almost, you know, gets assassinated, you know, like, of course, he, you know, uses his abilities to, you know, prevent it. You just know at this moment, like, oh yeah, this is not going to end well for the
no, I definitely felt like that. I kind of had my eyes out, because I was like, this dude's obviously the main character, like, something is going to try and kill him at some point. So like, I kind of assumed that there was going to be something that would go down, just because, like, that seemed to be the placement of where it was going. So it's kind of already, like, keeping my eyes out on certain characters, like, who's going to be the one.
Yeah,
who is it?
The doctor who, you know, his you know, his wife was taken by the Harkonnens, and, you know, basically, like, you know, held over his head, like, you're going to do this for us.
Yep.
And, you know, and the crazy thing is that, you know, I mean, again, it's another, you know, political conversation that I think Herbert was trying to bring to the equation, is that you can't trust your government. The government was the one that actually, you know, I guess, in, you know, layman's terms, if you want to put it that way, it's you know, it's basically like, you know, it's regular, you know, like, it's regular, you know, like, geopolitical climate, and, you know, like, you've got Trump world on this side, and that's kind of like what the Harkonnens are, you know what I mean? And you have people within the government that actually champion, you know, Harkonnen, you know, like the Harkonnen family, and want them to thrive and want them to succeed. And they have so much power that, you know, like, I mean, they can even kind of talk back to the Bene Gesserit, like, you know, for your sake, we'll make sure that at the very least, we will let the boy and the mother live, you know, like, in exile in the desert, but all bets are off. You're not going to tell us what we can and cannot do. We're going to murder everyone else.
Yep.
You know what I mean? and I was just wondering, like, on your part, like, did you feel that dread, and did it actually, like, hit you emotionally when, this family, was, pretty much like, wiped out?
Yeah, no, it was traumatic. Like I was just like, oh, that's where we're going with this. Okay. Like
Mhm.
it really showed the true nature of them. And it was just like, oh boy, like I didn't expect that. That was one thing I was not expecting.
Yeah. Let's talk about the actual sandworms in the movie. Which,
Oh, the forbidden buttholes.
yeah. They do definitely look like buttholes, and the thing is, when Lynch did his, version, like, they looked very phallic, and, like, again, you've got these long, slimy, creatures, like, what are you going to do with them? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do to make them stand out, I guess? And, like, the way that Villeneuve decided, with his creative team, like, I don't think it was meant to be a butthole, but, like, the mouth does it does look very indicative of one. I'll agree with you there. But did you think that their majesty was, portrayed well on the screen? Did you feel that, that massiveness of those?
Yeah. Oh God. They were like, it was terrifying. Like whenever they first appeared, I was like, oh, and then it's like you saw the size of it, you're like, oh my God. Like it was not, no, Rob, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like, no. The whole time they were on screen after I realized the size, I was like, no.
But here's the beautiful thing about this, because, like, this is eventually probably going to be, portrayed within, other chapters of the story, is that, these, these creatures again are, just, to certain people that are trying to mine, spice, which is something we didn't talk about, which is basically like a drug that's just important for, like, for space travel, for, for mind, for all these different things.
What I was told is that in the books, it's basically like peyote. So like
Mhm.
it's important to their culture. It's not just a drug. Because
Right.
that's how I was thinking. I was like, is it like meth? And they're like, no. I was like, oh, what is it like then? And they're like, oh, it's like peyote. So it's important to the culture. It's important to everything about
Mhm.
them, about that people. And I was like, oh, totally different than what I expected. Okay.
Right. And as Dr. Kynes actually says, like, Shai Hulud is the only one that I worship to. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Before she, has her untimely but, really incredible moment, where she, bangs on the sand, and the Shai Hulud actually, like, comes to save her, by swallowing her whole, technically. But the thing is, these are gods to these people. And, like, I think that's another thing that's so great about the story, is that, like, to people that are just trying to, make, some sort of, industrial wealth or whatever, they just find them to be a nuisance. Like, we're just going to blow them away. You know what I mean? And, screw them, but there's so much more significance there. They're not just, sandworms. They are, they're their own gods, technically.
Yeah.
Duncan Idaho steps up, to give the family some time to, like, to break free. And God, what a moment for Jason Momoa, because even, like, at the point where he's just, basically almost slain, he just gets up again. He's just like, "Argh!"
Oh
And
God, watching Jason Momoa get up again, I was like, yes.
Mhm.
Great.
Yep. And he just gives him the salute, like, I'm doing this for you, man. Like,
Yeah.
and when it comes to Duncan Idaho, like, later on in the series, there's some really, really horrible stuff that happens to Duncan. Not to mention being cloned, not having really any real recognition of who he used to be, and kind of being, this zombie-like, kind of right hand for the Emperor Paul Atreides. So yeah, there's quite a bit of story there. We get into the end of the movie, and then, of course, Paul is, basically thrust into a situation with, of course, Lady Jessica, who really gets to show her mettle when it comes to the Fremen, because they're like, like, we'll take the boy, he's going to learn our ways or whatever. And, like, we'll take him under our wing, but the woman's too old. First of all, okay, this is Rebecca Ferguson. Okay. So that's a lie. Excuse me. Sidebar here, Mr. Fremen. But
whenever he said that, I was like, how dare you?
But again, she turns the knife on him. It's, and he's just like, oh, okay, well, I was wrong about her, obviously. And, lets her, into the, into the group, basically. We finally see, Chani, of course, Zendaya's character, for the first time. I think these moments with her were, stand out enough. I mean, Villeneuve has already said that, Chani is not really prominent until the second part of the film.
Yeah.
But I think her, her presence, speaks volumes, of course, because it just shows that, obviously, like, Paul, definitely has some sort of abilities, and he did see her, in his dreamlike states and whatnot. And, I'm excited for more Chani. You know what I mean? Like, as a fan of the property, we're basically, after this battle that Paul has with the Fremen soldier, who he, obviously doesn't want to kill, but, like, we're kind of left in a moment where we're walking through the desert and we see Paul and his mother, following the Fremen. And, like, we're basically told by, Chani Zendaya's character, this is only the beginning, Paul. And this is where it cuts to black. But again, this is supposed to be, only the first, half of this huge, really rich and dense novel. And I think it was the perfect place to end it, I think.
Yeah.
So, before we get into anything else, I just wanted to ask you, I mean, like, did you have, like, aside from the costuming, I was certain that that was the one thing that was actually going to really stand out, was the costuming with you. Was there anything about the story that really, like, kind of stood out for you? Did you think it was entertaining enough?
Oh yeah, no, I felt it was really entertaining. I felt like they packed a lot in, and a lot of background in that I wouldn't have known, because, like, I'm not familiar with the franchise at all. So I felt that they did a really good job of, like, catering to people like myself. But as someone that went into it completely blind, it's a great film. Yeah, it's a great film.
Well, there you go.
They did an exceptional job.
She didn't know anything about the material, and yet she says it's a great film. It's highly recommended for both of us, I would think. And I'm really excited, for where the story is going to go and what Denis going to do with it. I mean, there's really not much else to say. That, like, once again, I'm just personally excited as a fan of this material. That, I'm really excited that, it's really starting to take. Oh, yeah. And with that, before we get out of here, we should mention what we're going to talk about next time. We are going to focus on Chloe Zhao's The Eternals, or Eternals as it's called now, of course, from Marvel Studios. Really not much else to say about it, except for, apparently it's one of Marvel's lowest rated films ever.
Honestly, I don't trust critics, and I haven't since 1998. Whenever they gave Spice World a bad review, they can suck it. I will like what I like.
Well, that's what we're going to get.
That's my 2 cents.
That's what we're going to get into. You have to form your own opinion when it comes to anything in life. You know what I mean? And, of course, when it comes to entertainment, like, we love things that, people don't love, like the first Suicide Squad, for example, like, we're both huge, massive fans of it. And, again, I think this is going to be another Suicide Squad situation when it comes to the box office. I think a lot of Marvel fans are going to come out in droves, regardless of what critics say, and it's going to be, become a monster hit. I'm really, really hoping that for it. So that's it, guys. That's Pop Jedi. Like I said, please help us, like and subscribe, help us get out to more people. And, we'll see you next week for Eternals. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.